beautiful people. My name is Sierra from Magic and Within, and welcome back to my channel. On this channel, I do videos about books, book reviews. Eventually, I want to get into spirituality and reading books more on spirituality and how those certain books pertain to my life, how I use them, witchcraft, all the cool different things like that. That's what I really want to do on this channel, and stay tuned for the video. Alright, in my last video, I talked about different authors, different books that I don't read or refuse to read any more of, and just my opinion on the books and the authors. But that's my opinion. We're going to move on past from that. So this time we're going to be going over the books that I absolutely love and reading the 1-star reviews of them. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I made a list of the top 20 books that I really love. Some books that I've mentioned before that I do love, they may have made it onto the list. This is just a few books that I've loved over the past 2 years or so that I've read, and that's just where I'm at right now. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with book number 1, and that is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So I screenshotted the 1-star reviews. I usually did either the first one, or maybe I went a little bit further and got one that was a little bit, more on the thread to avoid any spoilers or anything like that. But most of them are going to be the first one. And so our first one for Get a Life, Chloe Brown is this review. I'm going to add the screenshot in and just read along. You know what screams romance? Getting in a public part, and the fact that the whole romance was fueled by him wanting to her is why I only gave this 1 star. It was just boring. I did like one thing, which is that it kind of felt like a role reversal from usual romance, a prickly woman and a soft and sweet man. Okay, I get it. That scene was not the most romantic, but it was a little spicy. I mean, if you like smut, if you like spicier books, that was the scene. Okay, that scene was top tier to me, at least. And I feel like the whole romance was not only based off of him wanting to sleep with her, but just the fact that she was completely the opposite of him, in the fact that it was a close proximity type of thing. I think it's called forced proximity or forced situations. I feel like it was kind of in that sense, because Red was her landlord, so he had no choice but to be around here. And I guess he was more infatuated with her than anything at first, which I get it. If that's not something that you're into, that's totally fine. I mean, there are books that are forced proximity, forced connection, forced space books that I do not like, but this one to me did really well, and I really like that it was a little bit different too, how this person mentioned that the woman was a little bit prickly and the man was soft and sweet, and that's kind of purely to the fact that Chloe has an illness, and so she is more, I guess, on the edge on the edge, very much having her own health on her mind at all times. So it's not that she's prickly, it's because she has to monitor her own chronic illness. She has to monitor her life. She has to monitor when she feels down, and having to know when to cope in those situations, and knowing how to handle when she needs to stop. And the fact that Red is softer, he's a sweeter guy. He starts to learn those moments about her and helping her in those situations. So all in all, I think it was a really good romance. I love a good interracial couple. I love reading black female main characters, especially curvier ones. They're a little quirky, with glasses and patterned skirts. That's my thing. So I mean, I liked it. Not everyone's gonna like it, but hey, to each their own, right? Alright, so the next book on the list is Wayward. And Wayward is a book about a girl named Kate. She flees London to her family cottage called Wayward Cottage that she inherited from her great aunt. And she kind of navigates the space and its traumatic history, but also finding power and finding confidence from it, and knowing who she is and how each past generation that is in the book that it navigates, how it cultivates her to becoming confident, powerful in who she is as a person, and there's some magic in it. So her actual powers in general too. So the comment that I have says, kind of like The Lost Apothecary, but with blank and blank. If you've read the book, then you're familiar with what comes about in the story, the different situations that this comment is pertaining to. And I would say, kind of, because I did read Lost Apothecary. I really loved it. I really did. It has some elements to that, but to me, it's a little bit different, and it's not just necessarily those heavy topics, but also what comes out of it and how each of the generations have come from those situations, how they have propelled the following generations to handling their situations and kind of not owning up, but finding power in themselves and finding power in their name and who they are as women. So in a way, yeah, it's very it can be heavy. It's, trust me, there are moments where it's heavy, but I saw as more of the magic in it. That was really what it was to me. It was more about the magic, the power, and not only power in knowing who you are as a person, as a woman, but also literally having power in the abilities to make a situation that you've been going through and connecting it back to nature, connecting it back to your loved ones, connecting it back to your storyline and how it all impacts you, and knowing that other generations before you have been through situations. It may not be like exactly the same thing, but some situations very similar, and so you're not alone. That's what I got from it. That they're not alone, that Kate's not alone, and that the generations before Katie have all had that experience of feeling like they were alone, but they're not. So that's what I kind of got from the book. That's why I give it 5 stars, but I can agree to some extent on why this person gave that comment, because it is heavy. It's heavier than The Lost Apothecary. So there's some valid points in here. Oh, so the next one up is one of my favorite books. I mean, these are all my favorite books, but when it comes to like my favorite authors, if you've read my blog, then but I'm just going to reiterate here anyway. If you haven't, you might be new. I would go crazy for Talia Hibbert, J.L. Seeger, and Alexandria House. And yes, 2 of those are smut writers. Whatever. So my favorite book that we're going to get into today, right now, is Restore Me. Now, Restore Me is all about Sloane and Dominic, and Sloane is now a widower. She lost her husband after his car accident, and so she's trying to navigate life without him. She is really putting her all into her work, but then there's Dominic Alexander. I mean, he's the best man ever, and it's a whole like enemies to lovers, but to me it's not an enemies to lovers anyway. In a way, to me it's not. But it's enemies to lovers because she's trying to navigate like why Dominic doesn't like her. He doesn't talk to her. I mean, he lost his best friend. She lost her husband, the same person for them. They lost that connection that they have. And now she is just like, why doesn't he like me? Like, why does he hate me so much? He doesn't hate her. Because clearly it's enemies to lovers. So, they're going to end up together. They have a whole thing going on between them. I absolutely love it. Not everybody does, but I will say it is hands down one of the best books I have read in a while. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the screenshot. Oh, God. Where is it? Here it is. This one says, this one just wasn't for me, unfortunately. Mainly because I didn't like either of the MCs, so I wasn't invested in their story at all. I'm a very character-driven reader, so this really killed the book for me. I tried to get through this for like 4 days before finally deciding to DNF. I can't pinpoint exactly why I didn't like Sloane. She just didn't seem real or relatable, I guess. And it goes on to some more. It kind of gives out some spoiler alerts for some that have no idea the context of the books or have never heard of the book. But in a way, I will say Sloane is difficult to understand. Sloane is difficult to relate to, in the sense of, yes, she's experienced loss. She is a widow. And she's putting her all into work. So people who have that experience, they know what it's like to have, everybody grieves differently. Some people try to they dwell in that grief. They really have that grief take over them, and they go through it a lot heavier, and they may lead to other unhealthy choices, unhealthy decisions, unhealthy coping mechanisms. And for her, it went the opposite way of being really indulgent in that feeling and trying to block it out. Like, she really just put up a wall. She swept it under the rug. She didn't want to deal with it. And I get that, in the sense that it was hard to kind of navigate Sloane in general. I get that. It was quite a bit, but once you like really learn more about Sloane, and you learn more about her family and her dynamic with Dominic and how she was raised, because her mom is a bitch. Like, her mom is a bitch. That's the main gripe that she had growing up, is that how her mom has treated her. And so, in turn, I mean, as a psychology major, I can only analyze it so much. But from that relationship with her mother, she started to, I guess, have strained relationships, minus, obviously, she was married. Besides losing her husband, that's the person that she really loved. But she had strained relationship with Dominic. And probably other strained relationships as well that weren't in the book, because based off of how she interacted with her mom. Now, I will admit, it is character driven in a way, but not so much. I feel like it's more situation based, and what happens to Sloane, how people talk to Sloane, how people expect Sloane to be, versus her navigating her own grief process. Like, I get that. I really do. Everyone has their own different types of I guess not even format. I guess format would be a good word. There are different formats that they like. Some people are like character driven. Some people like plot and situation driven books. That's more of like, action based things. And for me, I do a little bit of both. It depends on what I'm reading. It depends what I'm in the mood for. And with Restore Me, it was very much so exactly what I needed. So the next book on the list is actually a trilogy. It's Beasts of Prey, Beasts of Ruin, and Beasts of War by Ayanna Gray. And I've loved the entire series. It's phenomenal to me. But clearly, people have other opinions. So I'm just going to like do it as one, even though I know it's just for the first book, but still, since I'm categorizing all three books as like just a trilogy to really kind of like make this list a little smaller, I'm just going to read a review from the first book. The person said, "I'm between 1 and 2 stars for this. It is the worst. Is it the worst book I've ever read? No. Was I bored out of my mind anyway? Yes. I feel like I'm just angry at this one for getting so much hype and being so boring and so long. First of all, it is a long book. I listened to it on Audible because it was longer for me, and it was on my TBR, but I was already physically reading like another long book. So I was like, let's just go ahead and listen to it on Audible. I loved it on Audible. Maybe it's better in different formats for people. Like, physically, it looks long, okay? It looks long, but it's not like as bad as most books are. Like, a lot of books are really long anyway. A lot of books that are just, they don't need all those pages. And so I guess for that one, it could be really long if I read it, but I listened to it, so it felt really short, and I listened to it at 1.2 speed, so it felt like nothing to me. I did like an hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day, because I was really into it. So in that case, for them, if they were physically reading it, probably so. That's valid. I wasn't bored at all. I loved it. I loved the magic aspect of it. I love that fantasy aspect. I've learned that that's what I like, is more magic, realism, magic based versus like fairies and vampires and stuff. So it was something that's very much in my speed of what I like. And it's obviously African culture, African mythology. That's something that I'm really getting into, that I'm navigating and learning about myself and just about my people, you know, connecting with stories that I've never been educated on, nothing that has ever been shared with me, but I'm purposefully going out of my way. I want to learn more about my culture, even though it is obviously fiction, but in some aspect, those are actual uh, African mythology stories. And so that always, I really like that. I love the characters in the book. It's it's not boring at all. It's very fast paced. There's a lot going on, and listening to it made me feel like I was watching a movie as I was listening to it. So maybe that's another way why it didn't feel as long for me, because it was very much like my mind was running it like a movie. And you know, movies are typically like almost 2 hours long. But I was fine with it because I was listening to it for an hour up to 2 hours. So it felt like just sitting down and watching a movie anyway. So that's where I differ with this review. Alright, so House of Hollow follows three sisters who have been missing for a couple of years, and when they come back, all the sisters are completely different than how they left. Their hair is a different color, their mannerisms and how they act are completely different than how they left. And as they get older, there's some stuff that goes on. Their dad kind of in the house, and out of all the sisters, the oldest is Gray. She is a model, but she's missing. Gray's missing. Iris is the youngest one, and she's still in school, so she's still at home with her mom. And things have been really weird. She's been really weird. There's a lot of things going on with Gray missing, Iris and her other sister. I don't know why they don't put the other sister's name in here. That's really weird. Her and her other sister, they go and try to figure out what's going on. Where's Gray? There's a lot of things that are coming up that are hinting at something happened when they disappeared and when they came back, because they have no memory of what happened. No memory whatsoever. But Iris is getting followed by horned men. A corpse falls out of her sister's ceiling. A lot of stuff is going on, and Iris and her sister are trying to navigate what happened, where's Gray, what's going on, and why are we so strange? Like, what is going on with us? What's going on with each other? Like, what's really what the situation is here? Because there's so much going on, and it's fast paced, and I love it. It has fantasy horror elements in there, mystery thriller, some paranormal. It's really good. And so the comments that someone made was that, no, that's not the one. What? Oh gosh. Okay, there we go. The comment says, DNA halfway through. Clearly, I'm the wrong audience for this book. I was expecting a dark and macabre fairy tale, but halfway in, I just cannot get past the whiny voice of the protagonist, an entitled and stubborn teen. This is as much a fairy tale as Twilight is about vampires. And yes, I did read Volume 1 many years ago. I guess that if you like Twilight Saga, you will enjoy House of Hollow. Okay, I wouldn't compare House of Hollow to Twilight. I did read Twilight growing up. I loved it. The books are better than the movies. I watched the first movie. I did not go back after the first movie. That was trash. But House of Hollow and Twilight are completely different. Different elements, different styles, just completely different. They're completely different. Obviously, they're both like 10 years apart in when it comes to them being published. Okay, maybe not 10, because House of Hollow came out in 2022. So maybe like 8 years or so, something like that. And I will say, Iris is whiny. She's a teenager. What do you expect from teenagers? Of course, they're going to be entitled. They're going to be stubborn. They're very much, that's what teenagers are like. That's what you were like as a teenager. So I'm not understanding why that's such a problem, because all the teenagers go through it. It's very much that mindset of like, this is my world and my world matters. And they're very much stuck in their own world versus being more receptive and empathetic to other people. Not all teenagers. I will say that not all teenagers, but for the most part, that's what it's like being a teenager. Like, you feel like you are entitled sometimes. You are stubborn. There are grown adults who are still stubborn to this day. So, yeah, of course she's whiny. Whatever, let's move past it. Of course she's stubborn. Her sister's missing. She's trying to figure out what the hell happened to her. And it's not a fairy tale. I don't know how anyone would get from this story that it's a fairy tale or like a dark fairy tale story. I don't get that, especially from like the cover. Just title alone, House of Hollow. It feels very much like monsters, woods, creepy things, not fairy tale, but more like the Grim Reaper version. A lot dark. I mean, not Grim Reaper. Wow, Brothers Grimm version. Very dark, very twisted. That's what I get from it, and that's what I expected from the book. So I guess it all depends, just pretty much on how you, however you take the title, however you take the elements of like the cover, the blurb, the title of the book, any elements like that. If you're expecting something and it doesn't go that way, of course you're going to DNF it. That's happened to me before. But I went with it in just as much as what it came out to be. Like, it's what I expected, so that's how it came out, and that's why I gave it 5 stars. That's why I love it so much. But completely valid on this person's point of what they expected, how it was different. But Twilight and House of Hollow are completely different. Let's not even put them in the same boat. Like, Twilight is on a little terrible boat, like in the water, about to fall apart. House of Hollow is like a yacht to me. I'm just saying. I'm Glad My Mom Died is by none other than the wonderful, the beautiful, the talented Jenna McCurdy. If you've watched iCarly, or if you just watch Nickelodeon in general, you know who she is. Like, it's not... You know who she is. Like, don't play games. You know who she is. And so she wrote her memoir all about her upbringing when it came to her relationship with her mother. Some aspects of relationships with her siblings, but it's more heavily based on her interactions with her mother, her interactions with her father, and how she grew up. A lot of this stuff about like mental health, eating disorders, you know, all of the not even allegations, because we know it's true, all about all of the things going on with all of the Dan Schneider shows and everything with that, but also just how she went through her life and what she's went through and how she's navigated those years while on Nickelodeon and even after Nickelodeon. So it's just all about her story and everything about it. I loved it, but apparently there are some 1-star reviews on it. And this one's a little bit longer. I'm just going to like read a little bit of it. If you want to pause it, you can read it even more. But I'm just going to read like just a few parts of it. Memoirs should be one's reflection about one's past. Otherwise, it's just a journaling exercise. Let's start there. I don't think that this is like a journaling exercise for her, but it was easier for Jeanette to understand her past by going by moments. So for this comment, it felt more of like journaling, but I liked the approach of like taking it by month or by year, because a lot has happened to her and in her life over the span of like 10 years, even continuing on to now. There's a lot has happened to her, and a lot that she still struggles with, as she's always said before. I follow her on Instagram, and I think it helps to narrow it down to exactly what moments happened within the span of that month, what comments, what major events happened within that span that have led to an impact in a specific area, like with her eating disorder, certain things that led up to her struggling even more with her eating disorder as she got older. It just helps categorize it and put it in a way of understanding what happened versus just like, I don't know what happened to me. Oh my God, I feel like I'm the worst person ever. It makes it easier to comprehend, not only from the person's standpoint of what happened and what led to these ultimate, not only decisions, but ultimate lifestyles or experiences that they have later on. It makes it make sense. just by doing that. So it's not a journaling exercise to me. The whole book felt juvenile, repetitive, and under-edited. I don't believe that. Jeanette would not put out something if it wasn't the best that she could. I feel like that's she would take too much pride. She takes too much pride in her work to put out something that isn't the best to her ability. That's what I think of her as Jeanette as a person, and also just how she presents herself. So, the inexplicable decision of using a present tense killed every chance of expressing self-awareness, self-reflection, and self-healing. I felt like it was helpful of using present tense to know and acknowledge that it happened. Not even saying like it had happened, but it still has an impact. It still has an influence on her today. Even though it did happen in the past, but it still cultivates and influences decisions and choices that she makes along the way. So it's not like, oh, all of this happened to me in the past and that's it, that's done. It's like, that's not necessarily true. There's some things you can understand, and with therapy and with a lot of help, you can navigate it and understand that was my past, but I'm going to move forward. But for other people in just other situations, it still has a hold on you in a way. It's still being addressed. It's not past. Like, it's still very present in your current life. And just knowing that it is there, it will always be there. It just helps navigate how you handle it day by day. Of like, with grief, yes, a person has passed away maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but the feeling is still there. That loss is still there. The memories are still with you regardless of time, because time is an illusion. So it still has some impact on you, and still has some impact in your decisions and your choices. So that's really what I get from this comment. There's obviously a lot more. I just jumped around, but I loved it. And I'm proud of Jeanette for writing it. And obviously everybody has their opinion on different memoirs. I don't read memoirs. Jeanette's the only memoir I've read. I mean, besides like 2 books by Barack. I didn't even read Michelle's. But I'm not a memoir type of person. So for me to read Jeanette's and actually have a very positive experience, it's very different from a lot of other memoirs. I feel like her take on it, her language, her style, and just her humor with it is what really had me captivated to read it, versus all the other memoirs that are very much like, oh my God, this happened to me, but I made the best of it, and so you can too if you just believe. Like, I don't do that. Like, I don't resonate with that. I resonate more with Jeanette's approach of understanding what happened to you, but also trying to find a positive light in it without being like overdoing it to the extent of like a motivational speech, because it's just more so of her telling her story, helping her navigate it, and it probably could help somebody else, but her goal isn't to just like beat it down into somebody of, this is how you should react to the situation, this is ultimately what you should come out of situations like this with, this kind of mindset. And I prefer her style. I prefer it. I love the book. I loved her being able to share her story. There were half the things in her memoir that I had no idea that were going on. I mean, we didn't know as kids what was going on with any of the actors or actresses, not only with Nickelodeon, but in Disney. We didn't know what was going on. And so to see it from her perspective and get what not only was she experiencing on the show with production, the other actors and actresses, but also her own battle, her home life, and how that and being in the media kind of like it kind of crashed into each other, really, and it just formed this bigger monster than anyone can imagine. And that goes for any star, any childhood star, like Demi Lovato, Miley Cyrus, a lot of actors and actresses who have been through what they have been through with production, media, their own life journey, and their own mental health. it's a lot. It's a lot for a child star to go through, and we can't sit here and say we understand everything, and we don't know what was going on. So it's helpful to have memoirs like this and having that perspective of what they were navigating and what they were going through at the time, but in a way that just covers it versus kind of like making it extremely positive. Alrighty, so we're gonna move on to the next book, and the next book is The Lost Apothecary. And so The Lost Apothecary is it follows our main character. I don't remember these characters' names, okay? I will forget them. It follows our main character who, oh god. Oh. She is in school, and so she goes to this building, this abandoned building, and she goes through the stuff, not in school, she's on vacation, right? She's on vacation, and she's going through this different stuff at this location, and she comes across a bottle, and so that's when she starts to delve into the history of the bottle, of the apothecary. So it starts to navigate, it goes back in previous times to when the business was actually running, and the little girl that actually ends up helping I call her herbalist, that helps the herbalist and run her business pretty much. So the review says, this book was written in a way I find grating, a lot of telling and not a lot of showing, and the story is extremely contrived and under researched. Are we supposed to gloss over the fact that her husband's final little performance is abusive, and how does the author know how grad school works or academia? Bonus points, I guess, for inventing the police a few decades early. Also, Caroline is in her early 30s and has never committed a crime. Narc. Okay, I don't remember that part. Anyways, fully lost my mind at sharing the truth. Spoiler, could very well catapult my dissertation work to the front page of academic journals. Oh, the person says like, oh yeah, girl, what? That's not how journals work. That's not how any of this works. Applying and being accepted to a master's program at Cambridge overnight is what finally set this into a 1-star rating for me. But hey, I did finish it in 2 days. Time passed while I looked at it, so congrats. I don't remember all of that being part of the story. I didn't focus so much on Caroline's life in grad school. So I was right here in grad school. I don't remember all that much about that aspect of it, but I just liked learning about the apothecary and learning about this little girl, how she was helping the herbalist, and how that time period and her learning about it. Like, that's something that's fascinating to me. That's kind of like how all of us are. We're so curious now as to how mummies have lived, and we're finding all of these different things, and we're trying to figure out what their story was like, how did they live. Like, it's pretty much just like that. It's just in the book. So I found it was very interesting. I really liked it. I liked the ending. I liked the writing, and that kind of navigating past and present. I found it like very easy to transition into. Next up for my review is The Change. So The Change follows 3 women who all have different abilities. One is divorced from her husband, and they call her a witch pretty much because she's let the house like outgrow like the vines everywhere and everything like that. She like has a whole garden of like poisonous plants and stuff like that. I like it. I really liked it. And the fact that they're trying to solve a murder mystery of what's going on in their town. So, the review says, I hate being harsh, but this book rubbed me the wrong way. It was blatant propaganda, and I guess if you're a feminist who literally hates all men and thinks they're evil, you may enjoy it. I totally get that this is somewhat supposed to be an exaggerated metaphor and tongue-in-cheek, but give me a break. It was so predictable and just felt very angry and bitter, and it was just not for me. I get it, it's not for everybody. I really loved it. I took it more as like these women having these abilities. I guess I like a magical realism and just that aspect of fantasy. So I liked that, and also the fact that these were older women solving mystery. It's not like a whole bunch of teenagers anymore. And the twist and where everything takes place at the end. Oh, I did not expect that. The fact that the fact that this person said it was predictable. Did you really predict the ending? Because I didn't. If you did, then you are, wow. Then you really knew what was going on, because I was dumbstruck by the end. So that was just me. That's my opinion on the book. I thought it was really great. The next one is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If I'm saying that correctly. And the story is all about literally Daisy Jones and the Six, about a band and a singer, Daisy, and how they become a band and how they navigate their lives, and how they navigate music and how they connect with each other. I loved the format of the book. It was very different. It kind of reminded me of like how this person said in the comments, like VH1's Behind the Music type of thing, very documentary like. I really liked it. And oh god, it was good. I really did like it. But this person didn't. They said predictable, interminably boring, flip to any page and I can tell you what's happening. Daisy is doing this. Daisy is doing stupid stuff as a result of this. Simon is hoping for Daisy to seek rehab. Hit songs are being crafted. Billy is fighting back addiction for his family. Eddie is whining over his lack of creative control. Other characters mumble something unimportant, which is very true. That's pretty much what it was like. And I guess that's kind of, I wouldn't say that's the problem with the book, but that's the problem with music groups, really, is that there's always going to be someone or like a few people that are more pushed to the front than others, and their mental health and their struggles kind of impact everybody else because what they're doing is harmful to literally everybody else. So Daisy and Simon both pretty much doing whatever they want and hurting the band, hurting their friends, and hurting their girlfriend that turns out that eventually becomes their wife, which, first of all, she didn't have to be his wife. That was unnecessary. You didn't have to do that to yourself, girl. What else? It's a little bit longer. So this reviewer says that the characters are so alive. I can't believe that this isn't a real band. Well, that's because it's a story we've heard thousands times. I suppose I could have guessed that from the blurb. I was just hopeful Reed's writing would deliver in a punchy book, but it fell short for me. And like I like how that person said it fell short for them versus just saying like, oh, it was just a terrible book. You know, certain books are not for everybody. Not everybody is going to love every book by the author that they started to really like, and that happens. So I can completely understand that. I wouldn't say that the characters were alive. I really liked the layout and the format. It captivated my attention more. Were some of the characters extremely problematic? Absolutely, yes. And the fact that they made it into a show, I do not want to watch the show. I don't want to watch the show. I'm not going to do that. Next up is The Family Game by Catherine Stedman. I love the book. Oh, so good. I love the twist. I love the characters. It was so interesting to me, so fascinating. It was pretty much like watching a movie. And not everybody thinks that, just like with all books. Everyone has their own opinion. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. It's a little bit longer too. What do I want to go with? They say, I suppose it started off kind of cool. It started kind of cool. Rich family, odd secrets, all that jazz. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's been done before. There's always going to be a book that's been done before. It's just how they navigate the story, what aspects of it are going to be different than others. Then it goes off the rails and not in a fun, surrealistic, I can't say that word right now, surrealistic way, or even in a mystery way. It's just almost nonsensical. It seems like the author just took some canned stories, borrowing heavily from fantasy and tradition, and smashed them together into a crap sandwich. And then it goes on to talk about the prose of the book, the certain scenes that are in the book. I'm not going to spoil it. But I loved it. I loved the style of it. I loved the events because it kind of reminded me of, if you've ever seen the movie Nasty Piece of Work. It kind of gave me that kind of energy of just like very outlandish traditions, very outlandish experiences and challenges for the characters. I really liked that. I really liked that aspect of it, and the fact that she was becoming part of this family that's literally just so freaking wild. And how the dad was protecting, his family lineage and his family in general from the truth. Next up is The Graces. And so The Graces it's about our main character, River, and how she is like obsessed with this family, the Grace family, and everyone in it. The Graces are all magical. They're all witches, I think it was. Yeah, they're like labeled as witches. And so she's just obsessed with them. So she wants to become friends with them. She just wants to be in. She just wants to be part. She just wants to be part of like this cool group, this cool family. Of course, typical teenage things. But the review says otherwise. They pretty much just cover the different aspects of it. It's a really long one, really, really long one. And they actually take quotes from the book. I'm not going to read those. But pretty much what'd she say? Besides the fact that she put down other females, the most annoying thing about River was her obsession with Fenrir. Fenrir Grace was the embodiment of a stereotypical hot guy, blonde, muscular, with a lazy smile that made all the girls swoon. Well, yeah, they're teenagers. Like, she's like, oh yeah, I'm so different from other girls. Yeah, some teenagers are like that though. And can't really take that all too seriously, I would say, because it's going to be in books, it's going to be in movies. There's always going to be somebody like that. Like, that's just reality of that. It's just how they've learned from it. Like, do they actually change? Have they learned anything from trying to portray themselves in a certain way? Do they actually misrepresent other girls? Not misrepresent, but do they misunderstand other girls or other female characters? Is there any type of growth? Then, if there is no growth, then yeah, that's a bit much. Like, you didn't need to do all that. But I mean, if there's growth, then that's just part of the character development. The plot follows River as she becomes close with the Grace family, but she can never quite be sure if the rumors about them are true. Thalia believes her family is cursed, but Fenrir brushes off the accidents that happen every year on his and Thalia's birthday. That part, I didn't really care too much for, about them, like, always having an accident on their birthday. I was just like, okay, cool, whatever, moving on. I just wanted to see if they were actually witches. Like, that was my thing. I was very much like River. I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out, are y'all actually witches? Like, do y'all actually have magic? Like, this would be cool. The comment goes on to say that they don't like how the characters are like caricatures or cardboard cutouts instead of actual people, based off of what each character is interested in. And I mean, that's a valid point, but there are some people who literally are cardboard cutouts. Like, that's why we have aesthetics, and people who are like, I need to fit into aesthetic. It's like, yeah, but you're more than that. And not everybody understands that, and it's not always very easy to navigate, because there are some aspects of it that are a little bit difficult to understand. The dialogue was stunted, cheesy, and unrealistic, and the showdown at the end was laughably bad. There was a plot twist that caught me by surprise, but it felt like the author added it for the sake of shocking the reader, and it didn't fit the story. The twist was good. I will admit, the twist was good. But how River changes at the end, I don't know. It was a little bit much. I don't know if I want to read the second one, because I know it's a trilogy. At most a series. I think it's a trilogy. Yeah, I don't know if I want to read the second one. Maybe, possibly. But that's just my opinion on The Graces. Next up is Pretty Dead Queens by one of my favorite YouTubers, Alexa Dunn. I watch her videos all the time when I'm writing, even before I was writing, when I was struggling with writing a story. I've always watched her videos. I love when she talks about how to navigate the publishing industry and everything. That's always very helpful information for someone like me who does eventually want to become a published author. And her book was about her main character who goes to stay with her grandma, and there's someone who ends up dead at her school. Oh my god, it's a murder mystery, so it's very much a whodunit type of thing. But not only is that person dead, but it has happened before. It's the homecoming queen has died before in previous years. And so the main character is trying to figure out what happened, who did it, who are the people involved, that type of thing. And I really liked it. The twist at the end, Alexa, you got me there. You really got me there. But this person disagrees. They actually gave it a 1.5 star rating, but they couldn't, actually put it in there. They said this was such a drag. The writing style really wasn't for me. It was so cringy and really highlighted how childish and immature the main character was. She was so annoying and honestly kind of dumb, but still thought she was the smartest person alive. She solved the mystery just by accusing every single person of having done the murder except for the person who actually did it. Really not for me. Yeah, she's a teenager. Like, a lot of my things that people have gripes with these other books is the fact that some of these main characters are truly they're just teenagers. What do you expect from a teenager? Of course they're going to be childish, immature. They're just going to go ahead and accuse everybody of doing it versus the person that they don't think is happening, that is actually doing it. They think that they're the smartest person alive, but they're actually kind of dumb. And it sounds like every teenager. Like, have you not been a teenager before where you actually thought, like, oh my god, I know so much about this one subject, and it's like, girl, you wrote a paper on it for a class because you had to. You don't really know this material all that well. That's just my take from that comment. She's a teenager. What do you expect? Next up is Mexican Gothic, and that is by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And it navigates the story of our main character who goes to live with the family. I mean, not live with the family, but she goes to her fiance's house. I believe it's her fiance. And there's just a lot of stuff going on with the family. The town is very weird. And it was just very ominous all over the place. This person gave it 1.5 stars. This book is deceptive and bland. It promises Mexico, but the setting could be England, and you never know the difference. I do agree on that. I wasn't sure where the setting was, to be quite honest. It promises the 1940s. It could have been 2020 with the explanation that phones don't work at high place. I agree on that. Also, the dialogue felt very modern and false. It promises horror, yawn, this is predictable, slow, not even close to scary. Every character feels exactly like the others, and Noemi in particular is pretty one note, and I'm sorry, but this book is just so dumb. As I just said, I agree with a good portion of it. It was slower, and it wasn't scary to me either, but it was suspenseful. I will say that. It was less horror and more thriller, suspenseful type of energy. And without spoiling it, the twist was it was okay, but I did really like what makes it like 4.5 stars to me. Like, I just liked the book as an entirety, and the fact that Noemi was really just trying to figure out what was going on. So, of course, it's going to be a little bit slower because it's just one character's point of view trying to figure out what's happening. So, it's not going to be as fast. It's not like we had the insight on the other side of what was happening. Yeah, I mean, completely valid. The next book is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. Yeah, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. And I read this book about 2 years ago, I believe it was. I really, really liked it. And just the aspect of they were trying to figure out, like, what was going on in their school. So this is pretty much like the main character, Jessica. She comes back to her school. They're trying to figure out another whodunit, like who murdered their friend back then or whatever. So the person says, the problem with writing a review a week after you finish the book is that I have already forgotten everything about it. The main issue with this book is the main character and also every other character. And Jessica is so So annoying. She's like 28, but she acts like she's 14. She's so insecure and constantly crying about how hard her life is because she didn't get into the sorority she wanted. Do I look like I care? Sororities and fraternities are weird either way. Keep that away from me. I don't even want to say more about this. The murderer and motive were also awful, and to be honest, I'm still banging my head against the wall. Who cares? Don't read it. All thrillers are bad. Read a vegan recipe book and do something nice for our planet. I mean, I like thriller books. If this person doesn't like thriller, that's fine. But don't bash all thrillers. Thrillers they're really good thrillers. Maybe this not have been the book for them, because Jessica, from what I remember, she was annoying, and she was insecure. She was still acting like she was a child, because she didn't mature at all. She didn't mature at all, and the fact that she was so hell bent on she didn't get what she wanted at the time. It's like, girl, you're grown, you gotta get over it. But she didn't. She was still stuck in that mindset of what happened in college. And I think that's what happened with all the characters. Everyone was still, like, not complacent, but still stuck because they never knew what happened to their friend. So I guess, like, in that way, that it was a traumatic event for everybody, and they all, like, kind of, like, got stuck there mentally in that aspect, even though as they got older. So I will say that. I think it was a really good book. From what I remember, it was really good. I really, really liked it. But hey, not for everybody. So the next one is Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? And I remember this book. I read it 2 years ago, just like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. It was really, really good, really, really cute. I had some gripes with it, but I really, really did like it. I loved Yinka, and I loved her navigating the dating space. It was her family that got on my nerves, which I agree with in 99% of the aspects of this reviewer. It's just some spaces I don't, so I'll just go ahead and read it. I'll give this book, the content definitely supports the title. Yes, the author thrashes your head into the theme of dating angst repeatedly in every chapter. And look, I was single for a long time in my adulthood, and I do not harp on my singleness as much as Yinka does, even at my most crazy state. And really, besides her singleness, religion, and general prudishness, Yinka did not have much of a personality, nor did any of the other characters. Sure, some could cook traditional Nigerian food, and others could not. And some allegedly had better butts than others, but that's all I got about these people within 300 pages. And to some extent, I agree, but I thought of it more so not the fact that, oh, some Nigerians can cook and some have bigger butts than others. I took that as Yinka struggling with her family dynamic and the pressure everyone had on her, and the competition, the competitive nature of their family, and how ridiculous that was. That's what really got on my nerves, is how ridiculous that they were really like competing with each other, not just like having better butts or who could cook and who could not, but just like, y'all too grown for that, like to be worrying about anything. Like, why can't you just like leave it be? And I guess that could play into why Yinka was like struggling with her singleness, because they were wondering like, oh, where's your husband? He's supposed to be married by now. Having that competitive nature for her, being like, oh, you're not winning in life if you don't have a husband. That's the energy I got from it. So she was trying to like fight that. She was trying to actually try to win in life. And so she was dealing with her singleness, her religion, and the fact that she wasn't really into what everyone else was into. And that was completely fine that she wasn't into certain things like that. And yeah, it was just very much so a lot of family strain, a lot of family influence on Yinka, which I did enjoy reading, because it just shows that other cultures, because we all know other cultures can be very strict on relationships and expectations for their children, and to read it in kind of like a rom-com-esque kind of book, but still see like how much of a toll it takes on you, even though you may try to make a situation lighter, or you try to like minimize the damage as much as possible. It's still there regardless, and you can see that in Yinka, in the decisions that she makes, or the decisions she doesn't make. and who she's talking to, and how those situations completely like just disappear altogether, or just completely just go nuts. It just shows that her family is unstable and competitive. She's unstable herself. And it's just to say that this is real. Like, this is a struggle that women have, especially Nigerian women, in certain cultures where they have such high expectations for women, even men. It just shows that how crazy people can be, how influential families and outsiders are to your world, and even though you don't want them to be, but they still are. They still have an impact on you and your decisions and how you live your life. Next up is the Wilder women, and so this follows two sisters, and they have their mother disappeared. Their mother disappeared one night. One sister has a gift where she can catch, what they say, it was like she has an echo of people's memories, so she can kind of harness what people were experiencing during a certain time. But the thing is, she can also lose herself in connecting with somebody else, while the other sister, she remembers things, but she won't tell her sister what happened, or at least some parts that may have an impact on the relationship. The youngest sister, she ends up being adopted by another family because she's like 16 when this all happens. The oldest one is like 30, I think it was, like in her 20s or 30s. And so they're living two separate lives, but they come together to find out what happened to their mom, because it's wild that she just up and disappeared. They're like, what the hell happened? So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. This one's a little bit longer too. It has some spoilers in it, so I'm just going to jump around a little bit. I guess I'll go to here. The person says, I honestly kept mixing the sisters up the whole story, but it also didn't help that their POVs kept switching without obvious indicators. And of course, one of the sisters would become someone else by catching an echo of their memory. I believe it was only one sister who would have an echo of someone's memory. The other sister was just going through her own POV. But it was kind of hard to catch it, I do admit that. But you just really had to like buckle down and like sit there and reread it. And that's what I kind of had to do. So there was that aspect of it. But I do agree that was a little bit difficult. The sisters, even Nora's gifts were confusing. I think my main issue is that the author is passing mental illness off as a gift and calling it magical realism. I don't think the author was doing that. I believe that they did have gifts. They probably always had them, but it just became heightened because of a traumatic event. That's my take on it. There were a lot of coincidental plot elements and a handful of things that just served no purpose whatsoever. I tried to give it the benefit of the doubt and pushed through for the sake of the book club, but needless to say, I didn't like it. I don't think it's really worth anyone's time. There were some parts that were unnecessary, like when I forgot which sister is pregnant. We didn't need that. We all could have just found y'all sister and called it a day. But hey, it happened already. The ending did confuse me for a little bit. I had to reread it like 3 times to kind of like understand like what actually happened to their mom. But the magical abilities, I did like it. I did really like it though. So to some extent, I do agree. We're going to go back to Alexa Dunn. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the Ivies. So the Ivies follows a group of friends who are all applying for the Ivy League schools. Everyone's trying to get in, and there's obviously only so many slots because, oh my god, it's the Ivy Leagues. You gotta get in. You gotta hurry up and try to get in into the school of your dreams or whatever. Even then, it's not guaranteed. A lot of things can change, as we all know who have applied for colleges in the U.S. You could apply to one school, you make a dumb decision your senior year, and the school can revoke their decision and reject you over anything. Like, it doesn't even have to be valid. It could just be like, oh, we're full. Bye. So yeah, that's mainly the story from what I remember. Um, but then I think it was like a friend is murdered after getting accepted into one of the schools that another character wanted to get into. And so there's a pretty much a whodunit all over again. The person wrote, for the vast majority of the book, Olivia just feels like the wrong narrator. Even once the narrative bothers to come up with an explanation as to why the other Ivies welcomed her into the fold, it just didn't make any sense. The only one that actually made sense was pretty tenuous, as was Avery's constant reassurance that Olivia did belong with them. I'm sorry to say that none of it worked for me. I get that it's a pretty stock trope to have the regular person find themselves enveloped in the lives of rich and scheming. And sure, Olivia tried and failed to scheme, but she just very clearly didn't belong. As for her investigation skills, I guess they existed. Anyone reading a YA thriller for the YA character to do the investigation could never be me. It's always just pretty whatever. Only here the pretty whatever investigation wasted no time in singling out 20 people that could have been the killer. What some might describe as a series of plot twists read more to me like this constant need to outsmart the reader. At least the 2 red herrings could have been removed, and I would have enjoyed it more. I get that the book wanted me to be on the edge of my seat, but instead I was simply rolling my eyes. The actual end of the book, after a final attempt at undercutting reader expectations, was fine. For me, I felt like it dragged on a little too much, but I get not wanting it to end with the arrest. I get that the narrative was going for this full circle moment with college admissions. Okay. Well, clearly I did not remember as well as I thought I did, because I did not remember that part, that Olivia was invited into the fold. I thought she was already part of the circle. I might have been thinking about another book. But anyway, YA thrillers, yeah. I mean, having your main character who's a teenager try to solve the mystery is kind of like not one note, but what do you expect? I mean, a teenager is not going to know everything. They're not going to be like super sleuths. They're not going to be quick with figuring out who did it, or they're not going to be, it's not going to be very well solved. Like, not even solved, but like not even very well, like, going through the entire act of figuring out who did it. It's not going to be smooth. It's not going to make any sense because they're teenagers. Their minds are all over the place. Even my brain, as an almost 30-year-old, is already all over the place. So I just know what to expect, so I don't really harp on the fact of what the investigation is like in YA thrillers. I'm just more so along for the ride. I'm just here for the twist. I'm here for the other characters. Maybe some are red herring situations that I just don't notice. The plot twists. I'm just here for along for the ride when it comes to a thriller, especially a YA thriller. I'm just here to see what happens, how well it's written. If the twist in the ending does it make sense? Like that type of thing. And for the Ivies, the twist made sense. It made a lot of sense. I liked the story very much. Alexa Dunn writes books really well. Yeah, it was just, I thought it was really good, especially to take college admissions and add, murder mystery to it. I thought that was a good little spin-off, a good combination to try. I mean, hey. Alright, we're getting to the end of it, and next up is You're Invited. And the story covers our main character who goes to her friend's wedding. And her relationship with her friend is very strained. They haven't seen each other in a while. The friend is very, aloof when she gets there, very mysterious. The main character's mom is kind of, on the outskirts of the group, pretty much, of society. She's deemed, I think it was just, she's just on the outs because she is a single mom. And then there's secrets around the main character and how she was in high school and how that kind of relates to how she is now. Very, very strange relationship with her friend. Girl, that was not your friend. And her family, too. Her weird connection to her family. Her weird, inserting herself into the family. And navigating the rich space too of the friends, connections, and family of, you know, the person she was going to marry. It was all very much so a lot. It was very much a lot, but I really did like it. The twist was really good. I didn't expect it, but it worked. It worked. It worked in that sense. For this person, they say it was way too long for the story that was told. The author tried so hard to plug twists and secrets in the book that parts of the beginning were unreadable. I don't understand this second part and that second point that they make. But every single time narrator comes across someone she dislikes even mildly, there comes this graphic description of how she liked to watch them die. You lose the shock factor. After the first time, the twists were poorly presented with not many details. After these huge buildups, the interviews in the book were disingenuous and not at all believable. No one talks like this in real life. Okay. Wait, the interviews. What interviews? I'm gonna have to reread this book because I feel like I'm missing something here. But I mean, okay, yeah, the description, the graphic description was a little bit much. I do agree with that. It was a little bit much, but completely valid from how she was growing up, so it kind of gets a sense of what her character has always been like, even though we didn't get to see her at the very beginning when she was in high school. It kind of helps to create this, not persona, but create the personality and create this backstory of the character and how she was very, very troubled, very, very much problematic, always into something. And it kind of helps with the shock and the twist at the end, because she was already very troubled, very much the problem in her and her friends' situation. Like in their dynamic, she was a big issue in the relationship, and how her very strange relationship to her friend's father was. I expected something else. It was completely different. But it kind of helped with that build-up, at least for me, in that sense. The interviews, I don't remember interviews in the book. I might be thinking about a different book, but I swear this book is literally what I'm thinking of. Why did this need to be almost 400 pages? Will not read this author again. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. It's the only book by Amanda. I don't even want to try to pronounce her last name. I'm not going to butcher it. So, Amanda J. I might read some of her books. I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of picky when it comes to my thriller, because some thriller is just like, I don't like it. But we'll see. Alright, second to last book is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Let's just jump right into the review. I am so surprised this had such high ratings. Maybe it didn't help that I didn't read the first two, but honestly, this book was terrible. The writing style was crass and left no mystery to the reader. The plot was boring and dragged on. The only interesting aspect was that the main character's crush was autistic. I didn't feel connected to any of the characters, and many aspects were unrealistic. There was so much vulgarity that it desensitized me, and I stopped reading the book in the middle of the first scene. In my opinion, don't bother. There are plenty of good romances out there. This did not do it for me. Okay. The fact that this person wrote romance. It is a romance book, but Talia Hibbert borderlines on, if you know, you know. That's more of the energy I get from her, not necessarily to the extent of like Alexandria House and J.L. Seeger, but it's still there, you know. It's still very much an aspect in her stories. And I will say, you don't need to read the first two, but it helps to read the first two to understand all of the Brown sisters' dynamic and relationship with each other, with their grandma, and how they were all raised. Like, if you read the first one, if you read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, you not only know about Chloe Brown, but you also know about Danny and how she is. You know how Eve is, how she's very much all over the place. And so the whole story is her trying to find out what is she wants to do with her life, because she has so many different interests. She starts stuff but she doesn't finish it, and so her family's just like, come on out, figure something out. It's very much so taking the typical plot that you usually see in movies, books, and TV shows, where you have the character that's just like, oh my god, my family has a lot of money. Typically the main character is white, and they come from pretty much a predominantly white family, where they are given whatever they want. They get to do whatever they want, but they don't finish anything. They're very much like a dreamer. They're all over the place. But this puts it with black girls. So it just shows that black women are not one-dimensional. Everyone has their own experiences, their own personalities. And for Eve, she is one of those that just don't know what she want to do. She's always starting something. She doesn't finish anything. And so her grandma's just like, can you get it together, please? Like, figure something out. I thought of it like kind of like a Hallmark movie. I don't like Hallmark movies, but this would be fine as a Hallmark movie because it was cute. The fact that Eve hits the love interest with her car for like a brief moment, just a brief moment, and how scattered she is. And just over time, as you start to learn more about Eve Brown, you also connect her more to her crush too, and how they're both very similar in some aspects of how autism spectrum is wide, because it is a spectrum. Like, there's different spaces that people land in it that identify and are on the spectrum. And it just shows the variation from Eve Brown to her love interest. Like, there are so many people that fall within the spectrum that you wouldn't expect to fall in the spectrum. But just by learning more about her, learning more about her crush, you're like, oh, okay. It kind of makes sense now. I thought it was really cute. I mean, I love Talia Hibbert. She can do no wrong. There's only one book that I don't like, but we're not going to talk about that, because other than that, Talia Hibbert is great. So, I mean, this was this person's opinion. If you want less vulgarity, it's not going to be Talia Hibbert for you. Sorry. Her books are a little bit more on the raunchier side, so that's just something either you're just going to have to deal with it if you really want to try to read her books. But if not, you could read something like Lauren Asher. That might be the route for this person. Maybe Lauren Asher, other romance books that aren't vulgar, as they say, that are a little bit more lighter, that still have the scenes in it, like Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey might be good for them. Not for me, but for them. It's just trying to figure out what you like within the romance genre, and what things you're just like, I'm not crossing that line. We're going to finish up with a taboo story. And this one is called Always Been You by QB Tyler. And I will say, it's very, very, very taboo. Like, very taboo. Oh God, here we go. I'm just going to start off with a quick summary, and then we'll delve into the review. Our main character, I forgot her name, but our main character, she was adopted into this family, and eventually, as she gets older, she starts to have a crush on her brother. Hear me out. She starts to have a crush on her brother, and her brother starts to have feelings back towards her, but they don't know that the other person feels that way. Up until, like, he goes to visit her in college, I believe it was. Yeah, he goes to visit her in college, and that's when everything really hits him. He's had the feeling for a while, but he doesn't tell her, and it's them navigating their relationship and how it all happened, necessarily, kind of like that. But with this reviewer, they seem to believe the opposite. So yeah, it covers the beginning. Is the fact that she was 2 when she was adopted, so she grew up with the brother. The brother is significantly older. I think it was like there's a 12 year difference, something like that. and the fact that he pretty much like helped raise her because she was 2, he was like 13 or whatever when she came into the family. And yeah, I mean, that is taboo, but I mean, what do you expect from a taboo story? Like, taboo plots are gonna be outlandish. It doesn't mean that it's just a plot, okay? It's not real life. Some people, I don't know. I don't know about people in real life, but it's a story, okay? There's gonna be some taboo plots, and taboo plots may not be for everybody. There are some taboo plots where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit too far. This one, it was okay because it was cute. But yeah, the reviewer goes on to say that if she was older when she was adopted, then it would have been okay, but she was a baby, so it was very much like 2 siblings crushing on each other. It does not make sense. Also, his feelings changing for her all of a sudden don't make sense, but somehow makes more sense than her feelings for him, because at least he was older when she was adopted, so perhaps he never fully considered her his sister. That part, I will say that I'm glad that this reviewer does mention that, because the brother probably didn't see her as a sister, but just as somebody that was like part of their family, but not like, oh my god, that's my sister. So it wasn't that connection because it wasn't biological. Like, he clearly loved her and cared for her and helped her out as she was, helped her as she got older and everything like that. But it's not like they were in the same womb type of thing, So it was a little bit different in that aspect, and also the fact that he is older, so he was around quite a bit at the beginning, obviously, but then as he got older, he moved out and he would come back home, and she started to look different. So I guess I would say is that not necessarily that his feelings changed for her, but he started to see her as like, oh, she attractive. He started to see her less as like, oh my god, this is like my sister, my sibling type of thing, and more of like, damn, she look good type of thing, which starts to actually have feelings to her, and more like an infatuation, a lust kind of thing, especially since the sister is black, adopted into a white family, so it's different dynamic, different than what he's used to, versus like seeing his actual sisters. So it's kind of like a different dynamic for them. They go on to say, I'm sorry, but this book had 0 plot. They slid from siblings to, after having one conversation, where's the drama? Where's the whole, OMG, I shouldn't have kissed you. I can never do that again. Where's the resistance? There's literally 0 resistance from either one of them. Stuff like this takes time to accept, even after doing. But no, they have one conversation while drunk too, and then bam, it's all the time. I do agree on that. Like, there should have been some resistance of just like, oh my god, this can't be happening, especially from a grown man. Yeah. Should have been like, I don't know about this. It's like some resistance, like some pulling away, even if she's pining after him, or even if she's not pining after him, still some resistance from somebody. Some back and forth. Just give us something a little bit extra versus just, doing it every time. So I will agree on that. This book felt more like a blank script than a book. It was literally 90% blank. Both the guy and the girl only thought about blank. The guy's blank whenever she breathed or was in the same room with him, which was extreme to me too. I'm just like, okay, you're literally being possessive for no reason. Like, it's a bit much. Also, why was the girl a blank? Like, in what world would she think that she would wait for her brother to be her first time? I guess she crushed on him and all that stuff, but surely she knew how taboo it is from the age of 13 to 18. Like, why did she never try to get over her crush? I would not recommend this book to anyone. I mean, it is a taboo plot, subject, thing. So it's not going to be for everybody. It's kind of like how dark romance is not for everybody. So I get that. But they also did not need to do it every single time. I will admit that too. Like, they did not need to do that all the time. Like, we could have had a little bit more discussion. And I think we got that. I think I got that in a different QB Tyler book more than this one. I forgot which one it was. Love Unexpected. That's the title of that one. There was more discussion in that one versus this one. And I think that's coming from QB Tyler as an author, of trying to perfect her writing style and trying to navigate these taboo plots while also still having those elements of, but also still addressing the fact that it's a taboo plot and what makes it controversial, but still has you thinking, yeah, but it tries to persuade you in a way into like, ooh, it's a taboo plot, but let's, like, ooh, if you were in this situation, like, what would you do, type of thing. So I do agree with that. It's just it changed. I feel like, I don't know when both of the books came out, but it could have been just that change in QB Tyler's writing in general too, because this could have come out before.